can be something as simple as to learn. Great. Wonderful. Thank you, Flannery. New tools in my toolbox, improve my skills. Love it. Thank you, Laura. Great, Ethan. Thanks. Inspiration, learning, something new. Beautiful, Mark. Leadership has been an area of study and reflection for many years. Yeah, because there's no end, right? You don't just arrive somewhere and go, well, I've nailed it. I've learned everything and I've arrived, right? We are always on kind of that spiral staircase. We're always going around. We just happen to up level every time we come back around. I refer to it as becoming. Juan says, improve leadership and learn something new. Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Let me get these going here. Look at my tricky animation. Um, Stephen Covey has some work that he put out around the circles of influence. And I just want to touch on this quickly. We're not going to deep dive into this work, but it's helpful when we start thinking about framing and when we think about the idea of what influence means and the different types of influence. So, according to Stephen Covey, we've got three circles of influence: things that are outside of my control, things that I can control down there in the red, and things that I can influence in the middle. And I just put kind of some language and kind of tried to encapsulate what some of these mean, and I'll go a little bit more depth in the next slide here. Circle of concern, these are external forces, things that are out of my control. And I'll give some examples of what that might be in the next slide here. Circle of influence is relational impact, and circle of control is my personal agency. I'm just looking at the comments here. Mark says, I think I've read Seven Habits 3 times over the years. Huge influence in my understanding of self-management. Beautiful. So, some examples of things that I can control: mindset, boundaries, the stories that I subscribe to, right? The narratives that I subscribe to. We we're fed these stories in many different ways, right? Whether it's through our upbringing, our culture, our work, how we filter the biases we have. So, stories I subscribe to. My energy. I can control my energy. I can kind of decide and discern where I want to spend my energy so that I keep my priorities and my values top of mind, right? So that I try to, I don't know, practice mindfulness or other things that might help to make sure that my capacity is realistic and intact and my well-being is top of mind. So just some examples of things that I can control when we kind of define this as personal agency. Things I can influence as relational impact. I can influence a sense of belonging. And these are kind of leadership skills, right? I can influence a sense of belonging. I can create a space where people feel like they can speak up and that their viewpoint is valued. I can influence levels of trust in a relationship that I have. I can influence energetic tone, right? The energy that I bring into a room, into a meeting, into a conversation, even if that conversation is high stakes and riddled with conflict, right? I can influence what the energetic tone is so that the communicative exchange between me and the other person or a group of people, stays within a space where everyone feels like they're still safe and respected. I can influence systems and structures that serve the collective good, right? Now more than ever, although I've been saying now more than ever for years and years now, we know that there are systems that have never worked. They've never worked, right? There's an unlearning that is among us in the collective. I can influence how those systems and structures that do work, there are systems and structures that do work. How do I enhance the ones that do and potentially impact, break down, rethink, get creative around the systems and structures that don't serve the collective good. I can influence how people feel, how others feel seen and heard. I can influence a shift in perspective, right? So these are things as leaders that when we think about those three circles, learning the skills of how to sort of, I'm moving my body in this flowy way. How do we sort of have our head on a swivel and we're kind of able to flex and move in conversation and connection with other people in a way that will influence how they feel and the outcomes that come, ultimately for the sake of the organizations that we work with. Let's see. So, question. What comes to mind when you think about influence without direct authority? And if you have a question, now's a good time to ask that question too. Feel free to come off mute. Feel free to use the chat. What comes to mind for you? Emotional intelligence. Yes. Yep. Soft skills. Jonesy says setting an example through my own behaviors. Ooh, I love that. You'll see later, Jonesy, one of my final slides. I jokingly say, but I mean it. I mean it with integrity that we are supermodels. We are supermodels, right? It's up to us as leaders to demonstrate the behavior and the change that we want to see. Beautiful. Self-confidence, yes, creates more equality in a work relationship. Beautiful. Josie says, I think of coworkers at an equal position and how we often influence each other in ways that are not giving commands, but collaborating, suggesting, and encouraging. Awesome. Allyship. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you. And I'll read this one too from Mark. Listening is a premium skill for many reasons, among them to give others influence over you and to open them to your influence. Yes, beautiful. That kind of even exchange, the reciprocal exchange, which is exactly what we're talking about. It's not one way. It's not direction, a unilateral direction. Great. Accepting, constructing. Beautiful. Thank you, everybody. Keep going if you feel inspired. Um, okay, mindset. For any skill to be learned or something to be practiced or any change that we're looking to inspire and ignite, uh, in my view, and I'm hoping this resonates with you too, it starts with mindset, right? It starts with us. So I'm just going to read some phrases and I want to just kind of let them land on you because I know them to be true. I don't specifically know each of you. Lois, you and I have never met. Mark Williams, nice to meet you. We're new friends, right? I don't know you specifically, but I am going to make some pretty obvious to me presumptions about who you are. Here goes. You are the trusted advisor. You are the trusted advisor. You're the experienced guide. You're the expert. I have a beautiful kind of mantra that a coach of mine once taught me, and it was more in the context of having sales calls, but I think it's really resonates in any context. And her prompt was, she said, Shannon, when you join sales calls in this case, she said, there's three things that you can sort of say to yourself, four things that you can say to yourself that might kind of help ground you in your genius, your knowing. And here they are. Let me know if they land for you too. Uh, I'm glad. So I'm on a call, right? I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you're here. I care about you. I know what I know. I love that last one. How How many times? I mean, I'm raising my hand on this one. How many times is that inner voice, right? It's got like a megaphone or a marching band in my brain is telling me that that I should, or I'm not quite, or I'm not there yet, or it's so easy to gravitate and hold on to those voices. And when we think about mindset and when we think about how we're going to retain skills around communication and then impart them onto other people and go out into our organizations and really inspire change, these are the truths. All right, here come a couple other truths, and these are more invitations than declarative statements. Here we go. Oh, sorry, I forgot this one. You're also an ensemble. Whether you are an ensemble because you're part of a team, whether you're in service of a community and you're trying to bring your vision to a community of people, you are an ensemble. And these are where I'm inviting or suggesting you're inundated. You're inundated. You're stretched between mission and bandwidth. You know that influence matters, but you aren't sure where to start. Now, if I was live in a room with you, like I was last week at a conference, I said, everybody, if one of these resonates with you, give me some snaps. Give me some snaps. We can't snap. I don't think it would come across the audio, but maybe give me an emoji or a heck yes or something if one of these resonates with you. Thanks, Taylor. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right, Linda. Exactly. I've got six. Yeah. And both of these things can be true. You are an expert and you're stretched between your mission and your bandwidth. Like both of those things are true at the same time, right? It's not one or the other. Great. Okay. Deep breath. We're all kind of landed in our mindset. Let's talk about skill set. Impact through influence. Yes, thank you, Mark. Beautiful. Okay. Oh, wait. Okay. Skill set, impact through influence. In a moment, I'm going to share my connective influence model and we'll talk about what each of the six tenets mean. And we'll have a couple of offerings for prompts and some ways to think about these practices. Before we do that, we need to talk about improv, improvisational theater. Many of you have probably, in one point in your life, seen improv, know what improv is exactly, exactly. Yes, and I see that in the chat. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Thank you for ramping that up. It's awesome, right? So, improvisational theater is a way, it's a format of theater where actors get on stage and they create something in real time that's never been seen before and will never be seen again. And it's usually based on a suggestion from the audience. So if you've seen anything on Saturday Night Live, if you've seen Whose Line Is It Anyway? If you're familiar with anyone like Tina Fey or Amy Poehler or Stephen Colbert, those people are improvisers at the core. And here's why we're going to talk about improv. My peers, Patrick and Jill, in their very small and easy book called Improv for Business, define improv like this, and I love this. Improv is a highly refined system of observing, connecting, and responding. So, well, yes, improv, of course, it's usually funny, right? It is a way of doing performance on a stage, it is theatrical. It is also a highly refined system of observing, connecting, and responding. So, I believe among my core values, one of my strongest beliefs is that a practice of an improv mindset will change the world. The practice of an improv mindset will change the world. And here's why. Improv is made up of many kind of rules and tenets and practices. Here are a few. And as you read some of these, think about business. Think about leadership. Think about advocacy, allyship, family, community. Actors who are putting together an improv show hold on to these tenets strongly. This is the backbone of how you create something that's never been seen before and will never be seen again. And let's face it, I mean, raise your hand. I don't think there's anyone in the room who wakes up in the morning and there's a script next to your bed. The alarm clock goes off, you pick up your script, you know every single thing that's going to happen today, every breath you take, every conversation. No, we are professional improvisers. So when you think about the tenets of improv, thanks, Becca. um, Here are some of those rules. Make your partner look good. When there's two people or three people on stage and somebody gives a suggestion, maybe calls somebody else, another actor, by a name, or suggests a location that they're both in, or an activity they're participating in together, the other actors yes those offers and make their partner's offer an idea just be the best offer, the best idea it can possibly be. Because now we have something to work with. Now we can create a scene together. Imagine taking that into business. Make your partner look good. Be willing to change, right? In improv, if one person comes on stage and starts doing something and they're like, I got this, I have the funniest idea, it's going to be amazing. I'm going to go back, I'm going to go down in the history books of world's best improviser. And somebody comes on stage and says something completely different because their idea was different. Willingness to change. How does that apply to leadership? See mistakes as gifts. We'll talk about that in a little bit more. But obviously there are some mistakes that are really high stakes mistakes. Those are not the ones we're talking about here. We're talking about the mistakes where learning is an opportunity. And then notice all the offers. We'll talk about that in a moment as well. I'll clarify what that means in the world of improv and what it means in the world of business and leadership as well. And the number one rule of improv, many people know, is yes and. Now, if we were together in a conference or a workshop together, we would really play around with this to kind of embody what it feels like to say yes and, because guess what we're wired for? Do you think we're wired to say yes and? No. What do you think we're wired to say? Throw it in the chat if something comes up for you. And then I'm going to give a little bit more of a description of what this means. Yes. Amazing. Yes. But, why, but, maybe, exactly. And say these words quietly or out loud. We're all on mute here because it's going to come. If you say these words, you'll be like, oh my God, how many times do I say this? Are you ready? Here they are. Yeah, but, yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea, but I think we should probably do something different. So, yes, and in the world of improv and in the world of leadership, as far as I'm concerned, means yes, in this context, doesn't always mean agree. It means to receive, to respectfully receive. I hear what you say. I'm honoring your contribution. And the word and is a word that allows us to build, receive, and build. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Now, why am I talking about improv? I talk about it all the time. So if you've ever known me or read anything about me or whatever, that wouldn't be a surprise for you. Today, though, the reason we're talking about improv is because I've borrowed some of these tenets and practices in how I've designed the connective influence model. So some of the language, I wanted to root you in this language so it makes more sense. All right. Connective influence is being a leader who guides rather than directs, who balances openness with clear decision making, right? Discernment, emphasizes co creation, creates a culture where all voices are heard and valued, and recognizing that impact is a shared experience. It's not unilateral. Here's the connective influence model. I mentioned before, the connective influence model that I have devised here has 6 tenets. They are hold brave space. Holding brave space, many of us have heard of hold safe space. In my view, and at least just kind of in how I talk about some of this stuff, I can't claim to create safety for you. I don't know what feels safe for you. We all have our lived experience, our triggers, our traumas. So safety feels, I can't, I'm not equipped to hold that for you. What I can at least try to do, and what we as leaders can do for one another, is hold brave space so that people that we're with and we're trying to influence and work and lead and collaborate with feel like they can come out and share, right? So the subtitle on this one is psychological safety. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute, and I'll kind of help define it if that's helpful. Listen to learn, right? How many of us, when we listen, I know I can relate to this, instead of listening to learn, I listen to talk. I wonder when they're going to finish. Oh my God, I can't wait to see this thing. I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. Wait, what did they just say? Serve the scene you're in. This is taken from improv. When you're in a scene, that's the only place you are. You are not in the scene before, you are not in the scene ahead. The only way improvisers can make something up on the spot is by practicing presence. Know and challenge your patterns. We all have them, habits, stories, biases, both conscious and unconscious. It's up to us. It's our responsibility to ourselves, to our community, and to our teams to at least, at least a high level have an understanding what those patterns are. And they're always changing because we always have input coming at us, right? That are helping us to become. Encourage share of voice, right? Equity. Practice bold humility. Practicing bold humility is about standing in our knowing while also being humble. We can be an expert. We can be that guide. We can be all the things we talked about earlier. And we can be humble and kind and compassionate and empathetic. Both of those things can be held at once. Yeah, exactly, Becca. Here's the 17 points I'm going to make until it's my turn to talk. Great. All right. So today we're going to talk about brave space and listening to learn. All right. Holding brave space. We've already defined why we're choosing the word brave. I hope that resonates with you. Please, if it does, if it doesn't, if there's anything else to add, please keep using the chat. I'm loving kind of keeping my eye a little bit on that too. Psychological safety, as defined by Amy Edmondson in her book Fearless Organization. She's sort of the I don't want to call her grandmother, but she's sort of the foundational teacher of psychological safety. And this is how she defines it. I'm not going to read these words, but essentially, psychological safety is a space where people can show up and express themselves and show up fully without being punished or humiliated for speaking up, right? There's no punitive kind of fault that I'm not being very clear. Maybe I will read this. A belief that we will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas or questions, concerns, or mistakes. I'm sure I know I have back in the day when I used to work for big corporate, there were times where I would suggest something and I was either given a look like, I don't want to hear that, don't say that. I also identify as a woman. There's certainly spaces and places where I haven't felt like I can be safe to speak up. There are many, many reasons, whether you're part of an underserved community, whether English is your second language, many reasons why psychological safety might not be intact. As leaders, it's up to us to really intentionally set up those brave spaces so that people that we're in community with and who we want to influence through the connective influence feel like they can show up and contribute. I'm seeing some comments. Yes, unconscious bias is hard to detect. We have to rely on some trusted companions to help us sometimes. Yes, yes. And I'm actually, we don't have this exercise in this presentation today, but I will just make a quick mention. Adam Grant, who many of you may know, he, in his newest book, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the name. And I've heard about it on a podcast too. I think it's like quarterly or maybe a couple times a year. Adam Grant sends an email to some of his closest team members, and he literally asks, please tell me what my blind spots are. What am I missing? And it's like with all the openness in the world. I gotta know, guys, because if I don't see it, I can't fix it. So I love that you brought that up, Mark, because those conversations are highly vulnerable and tricky to have, and probably the most valuable conversations that we can have. And so if there are some trusted team or an advisory team, folks that you work together, maybe that's a conversation to have to set that agreement and open that door to conversations around blind spots and biases. All right. Three kind of pillars of brave space that I'll touch on here: model vulnerability and transparency. The practice there is a vulnerability loop, which I'll touch on. Set the tone, setting agreements, and reframing mistakes as gifts. So these are the three pillars that I've identified for creating brave spaces. Vulnerability loop, for those who aren't familiar, is the practice of sharing a small vulnerability or a large vulnerability, sharing vulnerably with someone else because of the way that our brains work and the way that we people and human in this world usually will inspire a vulnerability loop. So if I'm in conversations with Becca, and rather than maybe diving straight into the nuts and bolts of business, or I'm trying to establish a trusting relationship with her, I may share something, even the smallest thing that might inspire her to drop the shoulders, understand that we're together, and just get us a little bit closer to a trusting relationship. And that might sound like, hey, Becca, how was your summer? Fine. How was yours? It was a little tough. It was a tough summer for me. That's it. I don't have to go into a whole thing about all the things that happen in my family or whatever. But just that is like, whew, wow, Shannon just shared something with me. And now there oftentimes will be this loop where now I share something a little bit with her and off we go. Agreements. Setting the tone. One practice of setting the tone when you're creating a brave space is setting agreements. So I'm going to invite us just for 60 seconds here. Take 3 to 5 minutes if you've got a pen, or you can just sit and kind of think if you're in the car or you're doing other things, to jot down 3 to 5 agreements that might suit your team culture. Or if you're not a part of a team, that might kind of help to create a space so you can have comfortable conversation with people who you are in an influential relationship with. So a few ideas might be make space, take space, right? Which is a way to kind of establish equity in who speaks and respecting how people contribute. Another example might be assume positive intent. If it's agreements around how a meeting is orchestrated, for example, it might be to be in airplane mode so that people are engaged. So maybe just kind of call to mind a meeting or a gathering that you're going to have. What might be some agreements that you would set and explicitly announce to a group so that you can all get the head nods and the thumbs up that you need to settle in, deep dive, and really get into that brave, trusting space? I'll just give us a few seconds here. Okay. Keep writing if you're feeling inspired. Now, look at that list and whether you do this now or you come back to it later, and ask yourself, how might I use these agreements to set the tone and create my own brave space? One example might be, and I've seen this work to great effect, maybe every time you have your Tuesday call or you sit down in the conference room to talk about your project list, and maybe every Tuesday it's like, all right, guys, welcome. Okay, thanks for the coffee. Great. Let's move on to our action items, da, 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 right? Maybe that meeting begins like this. Welcome. Let's all take a moment and revisit our agreements. We all agreed X, Y, Z. Everybody, head nods, thumbs up, good. Okay. Now we can proceed to getting the brass tacks of the work done. It just helps land people because we're so distracted. I think our how many seconds we're distracted now? It's like 8 or so. I mean, it's insane. And when we're in work mode, especially with some of the work that some of you are doing, right? This mission forward work. I mean, talk about capacity and vision and the balance between those two. It's a lot. Beautiful. I'm seeing some in the chat here. Progress, not perfection. Be here, be now. Step up, step back. Oof. I love that. Step up, step back. I like that a lot. Thank you, Marquita. Okay, great. Great. So that's a practice for creating brave space among many others. We're going to keep moving. We talked about mistakes. There are many ways to say I don't know, right? There's many ways to recognize that you've made a mistake, or as a leader to recognize that you don't know. And by saying, wow, you know what? I don't know. What do you guys think? Wow. Now we're really dropping in to a trusting, well, the opportunity for trusting engagement and brave space. If I as a leader step back and go, I want to hear what you guys have to say. I'm not the sage on the stage. The wisdom's in the room. That's huge. So just another invitation and a practice for how to create these types of psychologically safe environments. Great. Listen to learn. Curiosity. The pillars I've highlighted here: open-mindedness, noticing the offers, and staying fiercely inquisitive. And you can see some of the practices that are noted underneath that, which we'll walk through here. All right, Carol Dweck. Some of you may be familiar with Carol Dweck's work. She talks about growth mindset and fixed mindset. As leaders, especially when we're listening to learn, how do we stay open versus fixed? And I'm using my body like this because this is quite literally how it feels, right? It's open. I'm listening, I'm receiving, right? I'm taking in, I'm yes anding versus fixed. I want to be right. I want to be heard. I want to say my thing. That just tricks the brain into you can't hear, right? Talk about blind spots. Now you can't hear anything because you're too focused on what you've got to contribute. In improv, we talk about offers. I mentioned that earlier. An offer is an actor comes on stage and starts, let's say, doing this and putting like this, putting their hand up and down like this, and maybe they're looking and it might, to the other actors off stage, it looks like they're painting. This is my offer. I am offering this to anybody off stage who might want to come and do a scene with me. That's my offer. And now it's up to the other actors to come on stage and yes, and my offer by saying something like, wow, Janice, you chose the color blue for your bedroom. It's beautiful. Now we can work together, right? I want to suggest that offers are everywhere. Offers are everywhere. We just have to pause and notice them. They're in the verbal cues, the nonverbal cues, the way your teenager might sit with his his hands across his chest and his face all scrunched up, or the guy in the meeting who's scrolling on his cell phone, right? These are offers. The woman at the grocery store who's bagging your groceries and she looks like she might need you to give her a compliment or ask how her day is. These are offers and they're everywhere. We just need to pause and notice them. That's a way of listening. Asking questions. Asking questions, mirroring what you've heard from others, and then asking that fierce curiosity. That is such a respectful way to demonstrate that you're listening, not to speak, but to learn. Asking questions. Michael Bungay Stanier, in his book, The Coaching Habit, has three different ways that he suggests. Actually, hold on, these first two are mine, and the last one is his. Let me clarify that. These are ways to, when you're in conversation with someone and they're speaking to you, when you're noticing the offers and you are in the scene that you're in, you're practicing your presence. These are just suggestions of ways that you can say to the person you're listening with, what I heard you say is, what I sense matters to you. And then Michael Bungay Stanier, this is what he calls his ah question. And what else? Oh, okay. What I heard you say is that you aren't going to get the project done on time. Okay. Um, Anything else that you want to talk about here? Like just kind of continuing to ask questions so that the person who is communicating to you is given an opportunity to share, to express, to contribute. I have a really great exercise that we'll do sometime if we're back together again that really gets us to practice some of this and embody it. The point is, what are different ways that we can tell someone, I hear you, I'm listening, I'm present to you? Okay, we're winding down here. I want to leave a little time here at the end for Becca to close. These last couple of slides are what I call level set. This is sort of the bring it all together moment. And here they are. Suggestions for leadership, suggestions for practicing connective influence. As a leader, you go first. They're looking at you. They're looking at you. If you or I sit in a corner office with the door closed, what does that say? Does that say that we want a open-minded, expressive culture? Maybe not. You go first. As a leader, be a supermodel. Model the change, the behavior, the ways of establishing connective influence. Model those in order to create that change because folks are watching and you're modeling that behavior every day, even when you don't know it. Recognize your power. You are a ripple effect. Every little choice you make, every little decision, every little practice, every word, every time you ask those important questions in a conversation around curious listening, know your ripple effect. And in improv, we say start anywhere. It doesn't always need to be A, B, C, D. Nothing needs to be perfect. Messy is okay. We just need to start. All right, guys. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot to say around this topic, and we can tease it out all day long. And I actually do. I have a program around connective influence that I talk about and teach. Today, I'd love to give you this offer. It's a QR code, obviously. If you do have your phone available, snap a picture of that, and you should be taken to a landing page with a way to download my free resources. It's essentially a connective influence starter kit and also a document around how to create your team manifesto. It's a playful, gamified Mad Libs format to get you thinking about what it is that you and your team stand for. I'll put the link to this in the chat as well in case you don't have your phone or QR codes aren't your jam. You can click that link and get there as well. I appreciate you I thank you very much for having me today, and I hope to continue the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. And thank you, everyone. Don't you feel like for every single individual slide, that slide could have been the whole presentation? Does anyone feel like that? What we're going to do, as you all know, you've attended these next week in our email follow-up, when we send out an email to you all, we will send out additional resources from Shannon. Her organization, Enlivened Studios, has sponsored this webinar. She also sponsored a webinar back in the beginning of the year in January on leadership resilience. And so when we send the follow-up email out to you all, I'll send a link to that as well. She's been so kind to sponsor these and to give us all of these tips. And I really do feel like each individual one could be like 7 hours of like deep reflection. So Shannon, thank you for that. Everyone, please stick around. I'm going to share my screen as we wrap up here. Shannon, can you nod if you can see my screen? Thank you.
I was sharing, but I stopped sharing. So, if you want to share now, we should be able to. Oh, wait. Oh, it's in another tab. Yes, I'm sorry. I can see it.
Okay, you can see it. Okay, perfect. Speaking of like the QR code deluge, everyone, mark your calendar for our next webinar next month in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month on September 25th. We have an exciting group of presenters from a variety of organizations who are going to talk about ways to develop workforce development within their communities, but from a variety of different services that they perform. So we're going to hear from leaders in finance from Chase Bank, actually, in community health, and some leaders in digital inclusion. And they're going to focus on economic opportunity and workforce readiness, how our digital inclusion efforts can specifically help either through a grassroots level or more, established organizations in the community. So there is the registration link for that. We are very excited about the lineup. I want to give props to my co-host Alejandra Alcaraz for getting this set up. So please join us next month for that. And save the date. Where is time even going? We're almost in September, which means that everyone will be working toward Digital Inclusion Week early in October. Everyone, please save the date October 9th. We have a lineup of 7 webinars back to back to back on a variety of topics that are relevant in different sectors, actually. We have the Better Business Bureau talking about internet safety. We're going to have leadership resilience in these difficult times. We're going to have housing information, additional workforce information. So more info coming soon, but that's going to sneak up on us. So right now, as you've jotted down notes from Shannon's presentation, just bookmark October 9th to see what we have going on. And we can't wait to have that day of conversation with you all. As we wrap up, knowledge is power, and we are committed at Digital Lift to keeping up these webinars every month. These are free. Digital Lift is a nonprofit organization, and as everyone on this call knows, this has been a challenging year. It's been a lot of changes, and it's required a lot of pivoting and a lot of resilience on our part, on top of just our daily workforce responsibilities. If you know of any organization, or if your organization is interested in helping support us, please click on this link. It tells you a little bit more how you can donate. $5 or a monthly subscription of $50. We're not talking about you necessarily, but if your organization or other organizations that you know are looking for ways to make a difference, this can. Also, if you want to contact us, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Sorry here. If you want to contact us, with ideas for webinars or for webinars that you would like to sponsor or that your organization would like to sponsor, the way that Enlivened Studios is doing today, you can contact us at lift@digitallift.org, and we're very interested in those conversations. Okay, here is our giveaway. We are giving away a $300 value class. It's Managing Digital Navigators. And in line with some of the tenets that Shannon talked about today in Connective Influence, this isn't just managerial tips. This is specific for the work that we do in digital inclusion. And some of that includes how to actually support and develop people who work in this field that is often very demanding in helping others. So a lot of the concepts that Shannon talked about are touched on in various ways, not only of setting up a program and of recruiting some of the best, but how to support them and how to be a good role model, maybe even a supermodel, as Shannon talked about, but at least a very good role model. So let me, because we all know I can't do two things at once, let me stop my share, please. Let me know if you're here for our giveaways. Please either say like, hey, I'm here, or put something in the chat. Is Sonia Rivera here? Yes, because I see Sonia. Okay, Sonia, I'm going to follow up with the free enrollment in that course. There she is. I'm loving the jazz hands. Do we have Jonesy Bones with us? Jonesy, okay, I will follow up with you as well early next week. Congratulations on that enrollment. Do we have Henry Wolin? If I said the name right, Henry. Okay, great. Wow. Great. Those are our top three winners for free enrollment in Managing Digital Navigators. And for everyone, we will follow up early next week, as usual, with a link to this webinar, but also some additional resources from Shannon. I will put those in the email. Shannon, a special thank you for this. This is the second webinar this year that you have sponsored, and the type of content that you give us is a very grounding and helpful reminder of ways that we can show up and be present in our own life, even in very difficult times. And I thank you for that.
Thank you. Right back at you. Thank you so much.
Everyone, I hope you enjoyed this. It is, as always, so nice to get together with you all and see all of your like returning little faces and some new ones as well. Ale, my co-host, put the link, the registration link in there for the September webinar. Mark your cals for October 9th. And with that, I will say farewell. Have a great day and a great Labor Day weekend. Thank you all.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.